What's up with it, Raider Nation? It's your boy, Raider Honcho, and I'm back with a brand new video for you. If you're a fan of the Las Vegas Raiders and want to support this channel, please subscribe. Also, check out Raiderhoncho.com, pick you up some of that merch, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Both are at Raider Honcho. Now, headed into the 2021 NFL football season, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of people in our organization. From the top to the bottom. You're talking about the players, you're talking about the coaching staff, offense, defense, the whole organization has a lot of pressure to start producing and getting more production in the team, right? But there's one coach in particular that I think has a lot of pressure on him, probably a little more than all the other coaches, and that's going to be defensive back coach Ron Milus. Now, I don't mean pressure in the sense of job security or your job is on the line or anything like that. I just think he has a big job to do, and he has a lot of pressure on him to get that job done. All right, now, when you think about John Gruden, some of you might say he has a lot of pressure on him. In my opinion, he doesn't, because he's the $100 million man. He's the boss. He has a 10-year contract. So in reality, all he has to do, theoretically, is convince Mark Davis that, hey, there's a plan in place here. It's going to take a couple years for me to get it going. And if he buys that baloney, then John Gruden is safe, right? So we're not talking about job security. You might think about Gus Bradley having a lot of pressure on him. I don't think he has a lot of pressure on him because it's his first year. He's a DC, and I mean, there's no way our defense could be worse than it was last year, right? There's just no way it could be worse. We can only go up from where we were. So I don't think Gus Bradley has a lot of pressure on him. When you think about Ron Marinelli, the defensive line coach, he has a Max Crosby. He has a Cleve Farrell. He has a Jonathan Hankins. They went and got 7 defensive linemen, interior linemen, defensive ends. You got Kuntz. So I think the defensive line has the players, right? When you think about the linebacker coach, well, he has a Kukowski. He has a Littleton. He has a Morrow who's familiar with the system, right? So he has pieces there. You're also going to have Diablo to play around with in that position. But when you think about the defensive back coach, you think about Ron Milus and the pressure he's under, is because the secondary was arguably the worst part of our entire team last year, right? So when I say he has pressure on him, it's more the pressure to actually turn what we have into something great, turn what we have into something good. We got great players in Yannick and Clea and Crosby and interior on the defensive line. We have Kukowski and Littleton, who, in my opinion, are really good players already. But Milus has to find somebody in that secondary. We don't really have the alpha yet. We don't really have the ace, the go-to guy. And I think that it's his job to find that. And he has a lot of pressure on him because he has to do it now. And he also has to do it one of the youngest cores, one of the youngest groups on the whole team in the entire NFL. The Raiders have one of the youngest secondaries, right? When you think about Mullen is young, Arnett is young, Merrick is going to be a rookie, Isaiah Johnson, you think about Nate Hobbs, Lawson, Nixon, Amik Robinson. The only players that aren't really that young are Rasul and Hayward. But think about Jonathan Abram. Like, these guys are all pretty much young, and he's kind of starting from scratch. But he's not just starting from the bottom. He's kind of starting in the negative territory because he has to undo all the poor habits that they have, all the poor techniques they have, all the trouble they had in Gunther's system. He has to undo that and then get them going, right? And when you think about our secondary, obviously PFF, not everybody likes them, but they were graded the 31st, I guess worst or best, secondary in the NFL in 2020, which means they were pretty much second to last in the secondary, their grading. And actually, they've been the bottom in that area for like the last 4 years. So when I say Ron Milus has the pressure on him, he has the pressure on him because he doesn't have the names. He doesn't have the ace. He doesn't have that go-to guy, right? We had 7 interceptions as a secondary last year, and 3 of those interceptions are gone walking out the door when you get rid of Jeff Heath, right? We only had 3 forced fumbles last year. One of those was Eric Harris, who was out the door. So we're talking about a defense that just didn't turn the ball over that much, didn't get turnovers for the offense, didn't really produce much of anything. We also led the NFL in missed tackles last year as a team, but primarily in that secondary, we were awful at tackling, we were awful at technique, we were awful at taking angles. We were just really bad, right? And like I said before, we don't really have that ace, that go-to, that shutdown guy yet. I think that might possibly be in the building. I just don't think we've developed it yet, and that's why he has the pressure on him to develop that, right? We don't really have that guy who's gonna lock down the #1 receiver. You think about our schedule, we're gonna see the OBJs and the Landrys, right? We're gonna see the Tyreek Hills. We're gonna see the Jujus and the Claypools. We're gonna see the Coopers and the CeeDee Lambs, the Allen Robinsons. Like, who is our guy that's gonna shut those guys down, right? Who is the guy that's going to step forward and be that go-to lockdown, put him on the island, whatever the case may be, lock him up on number one, and go get the ball for us. Go get incompletions. Go get pass deflections. Go get tip passes. Go make tackles on third and long that prevent a first down, right? Like, don't get the pass interference calls. Don't get the holding calls that we've been getting in the past. Like, who's going to be that guy? We have the talent, but it's undeveloped. And I think he has the biggest job at developing talent. I think defensive line, that talent is a little more developed than the secondary. The linebacker core is definitely more developed than the secondary. So I think Ron Milus has his work cut out for him. And I really like Ron Milus. I really like how he presents himself as a coach, just from a coach. From a coaching standpoint, I respect the fact that, like, I watched one of his interviews and he was quoted saying, "It's being a coach is in a 9 to 5. There's no hours. You work until you get the job done." And as a coach, I agree with that. And sometimes you got to bring it home with you. You got to do stuff at home. You can't just, it's not just on the field or in the office. And I like that he has that. I like his mentality of being firm and being fair. He's a player's coach as well. Now, from the coaching standpoint, I respect him. But from the player's standpoint, I also love the fact that he's a player's coach, meaning that he's fair and he's firm. He's a perfectionist. But when you're a player's coach, the players have to know that you care about them. The players have to know that you want to help them. When you think about Paul Gunther, do you think the players felt like he cared about them when he wasn't putting them in the best positions and situations to be successful? Absolutely not. Do you think that he wanted to help them? Absolutely not. He didn't help them. He hurt them in many aspects of the game. So as a player, you like this kind of coach, and he also exudes that confidence, that swagger, right? When he was in LA with the Chargers, their secondary was called the Jack Boys. And that's because they were thieves in the secondary. They wanted to take the ball away. They wanted to force turnovers. And a coach that has that swagger, that moxie, that allows you to have a name. Like in my secondary, we call them the no-fly zone. You can't fly around us, right? We just want to have that swagger. But when you have a coach that allows you to have a name, have a title, and then go play like that, as a player, you really embrace that. You really love that. You know that he's allowing you to be yourself. And I think Ron Milus brings that to the table. So I think he's a perfect fit for what we got going on with our young guys. When the Arnett's and the Mullins, you know they got that swag. You know that they're dogs. You bring in Casey Hayward, someone you're familiar with who was a former Jack boy, and you bring him over here and maybe he can kind of help transfer what you're saying on the sideline and in the classroom onto the field. I think this is going to be a perfect fit for us, a perfect fit for our young secondary to have Ron Milus in the building. Has a ton of experience with the Chargers, the Broncos. He's a former player. I believe he went to Washington and was a secondary player. So I love players that turn coaches. I love players that might not have been A1 superior athlete players, but they spent so much time trying to get better with technique. Where do your feet align? What are you doing with your hands when on the point of attack, on the point of the catch? I love coaches like that. That's the kind of coach I am. That's the kind of coach I love to play for. And I think Arnett is going to excel in this. Mullen's going to excel in this. Abram is definitely going to excel in this. Merrick is starting his rookie season with banging coaches, right? When you talk about Gus Bradley and then Ron Milus, it doesn't get no better for a young corner, a young DB, and I think we're going to benefit so much from that. Get down in the comments and let me know what you think. But I think Ron Milus has the most pressure on him because he has to find a diamond in the rough when you're talking about our secondary. We're young, we're inexperienced, we're undeveloped, we haven't touched any potential, and we haven't produced. Our defensive line has shown that they can produce at times. Our linebackers have shown that they can produce at times. I think the one part of our team overall, our quarterbacks are good, our line is good, running backs are good, receivers are good, tight ends are good. The only part of this team as an overall that hasn't really shown they can get it done is the secondary. So I think Ron Milus has a lot of pressure on him to be the guy to bring our secondary to life, to bring our secondary some respect, some credibility in the NFL. And it's not bad pressure. I think it's good pressure. I think it's excitement. I think there's a lot of anxiety in that secondary, and I think he's the guy to reel it all in and put it all together for us. And so when I say he has pressure, it's not pressure to lose his job, but he has the pressure on him to be the guy to bring this secondary from the bottom of the ranks to the top of the ranks. And I personally think he can get it done. So let me know what you think in the comments about Ron Milus. Let me know what coach you think has a lot of pressure on him as well. If you like the video, well, damn, like the video. If you like the content on this channel, subscribe to the channel. And until the next time, Raider Honcho out.